everyone. I'm Sangeetha Bharath, and before I get started, I want to thank all of my teachers from my school and everyone who came here to support us today. So thank you so much. Paying it forward around the world. Étoile Rousseau, December 4th, 1914, Besançon, France. Father is at war, yet what I see are nothing but apprehensive citizens as they stroll along, continuing as much of daily life as possible. Today, the monotonous air within our petite home is replaced with the crisp air of the outdoors as my sister and I leave to buy food. Fresh produce is not too easy to come by, but we look here and there for a good potato or a juicy fruit. I turn my head, and there I see a girl, struggling not to cry amidst towering market-goers. My sister has purchased veal and the piquant chilies my mother loves for her improvised hot cuisine. I ask the little girl where her mother is. She whispers back, and her voice is almost hidden by vendors caterwauling their bargains. She has no mother. She has no food. I see a half loaf of brioche sitting next to a thick slice of Roquefort, and immediately I know what I must do. I hand the woman at the booth my francs, the coins I was saving for the cobalt calico dress with ecru Peter Pan collar in the window of La Bella across the street. I handed the bread and cheese to the girl, smiling as she stared back at me in awe. This is much better than any dress I could ever have. Valentin Lucia, April 17, 1930, Algeciras, Spain. It was after the Great War that I moved to Spain. It is swelling with flourishing animation, so much unlike the detestable recesses of French poverty. Maybe I feel like this because my memories of France are scarce, and those I do recall are gruesome accounts of famine and hardship. My true name or age I have no remembrance of, but shortly after arriving in Spain, I decided that I am to be Valentin Lucia, age 23. The gentle pitter-patter of falling rain transforms into a menacing growl of thunder. I hear people shriek with delight and gather their wares, scurrying under tented protection. Suddenly, a knocking resonates from my door. I peek out the window, and there, on my doorstep, is a boy, drenched. I open the door, and he begs for food in rudimentary Spanish. I do not instantly put food in his hands. He is not going to eat my carefully prepared food in the bitter deluge of precipitation. He will eat where I eat, indoors. His tentative steps seem reluctant, but I'm hospitable. I give him some of my husband's clothes, who won't mind, and I pass him a plate of Andalusia and watch reverently as he devours the meat. I offer him a bed in our home. He shakes his head, but thanks me for the meal. As the boy leaves, I flash back to a cold December morning in France when a sweet girl bought me the simplest of foods, bread and cheese. The gesture was kind enough, and I feel I have paid it forward. Merci, I whisper into the delicate atmosphere of my home. Caleb Comdan, February 29th, 1960, Zanzibar, Africa. Mimi ni Kalebu Kamnan. I practice saying my name in Swahili as the plane lands, the sound of the powerful wheels striking gravel thundering in my ears. After making my riches in Spain as a doctor, here I am in Zanzibar. The clock strikes 23:41 Western European time, and I feel a sudden rumbling beneath the earth. It isn't much to me, but the televisions placed conveniently around the terminal burst into emphatic action. The woman on the screen starts talking rapidly, announcing the breaking news in perfect Swahili that is difficult for me to understand. I pull out the dictionary I bought at the terminal's first store and translate swiftly as to not lose time. A 5.7 magnitude earthquake, but the damage is not known yet. Imam Mohammed V has asked all cities to send immediate aid to Agadir. I turn and see a woman my age screaming over a man's unconscious body. This is Swahili I do understand. I rush and call for someone to bring me a bucket of water, anything. Pedestrians look at me with gruesome expressions, but ignore my demands and keep moving. Boiling with anger, I get the water myself from the nearest washroom and pour it on the man's head. The woman smiles gratefully, but a tear drips from her eye as she explains. I then understand why her husband fainted. Their child is in Morocco, and they do not know if he survived. I give them everything I have. When I go home, I will have more money, and my wife can always make me more food. The man thanks me repeatedly. As I watch them, I remember one night when I was offered refuge and given food. I remember the time before I was rich, when I was just another boy of the slums. I remember the kind woman in Spain who let me into her home and gave me Andalusia and homemade bread and just what I needed, warmth, kindness, and love to keep going and follow my dream. I may not have done much for this couple, but I am paying it forward day by day. Lucas Santiago, March 22nd, 1975, Tocantins, Brazil. It has been exactly 15 years to the date when my wife and I found out our son had died. Before he went to college in Morocco, he grew up right here in South America, but never had the chance to return. I am switched back to reality as the cashier asks for my order. I turn around to measure the queue. The woman behind me in line has a tired expression on her face. Even amidst the compelling scent of famous Brazilian brewed cocoa, she seems quite morose. When the cashier, disinterested and apathetic, asks for my order again, I don't order anything for myself. I tell her to give the woman behind me a box of Brigadeiro. I tell the cashier my gift should be anonymous, so I pay and I sit down at a nearby table. I watch as the cashier gives the woman the beautifully wrapped case of chocolates. The lady is stupefied, her mouth ajar and eyes gleaming. This reminds me of the kind man who assisted my wife and I on the day of the deadly earthquake. I thought of him for only a little time, but this simple event seems to bestir my memories. His kindness was unforgettable, despite the fact that around a month later, my son's body would be found and my life would come crashing down upon me. Waiting at my table, I watched the woman, mauve box in hand, buy an espresso for the man behind her. That man, grinning, then proceeds to purchase a creamed papaya for the elderly woman behind him, who pays for cones of chocolate ice cream for the little boy and his mother behind her. I watch as these smiling people start exchanging conversation, their laughter sweeter than all the chocolate in this coffee shop. I've paid it forward, I think, at last. I walk out the door, nothing in hand, but more than anything in heart. Natalia Devereaux, December 24th, 1992, Fairbanks, Alaska. I used to live in Brazil, and moving to the frigid brutality of frosty Alaska was a pretty big transition, of course. I grew accustomed to it. I was in the hospital nearly 7 months ago, about to give birth to my third child. My family now sits in the Silver Gulch Brewery, my twins playing cheerfully with their baby sister. An expensive restaurant as it is, we sit in the VIP lounge, served by personal waiters and waitresses. I feel, despite all this luxury, that something is wrong. I flash back to my days in Brazil before I met my oil tycoon of a husband and moved to Alaska, to his kingdom. I remember my days as a college student, working full-time as a waitress and taking as many classes as I could. This reminiscence is interrupted as my husband orders pan-poached Alaskan salmon piccata for himself. The waiter looks at me expectantly. It's Christmas Eve, I think to myself. This young man should be home with family, not working for extra money. Spicy ratatouille for me, please. I force a smile, and the waiter writes my order down. 4 steaming plates arrive at our table in less than half an hour. My children devour their meals as if they have not eaten in days. Soon enough, our dishes are empty and stomachs full. My husband pays the check and stands up to leave. While he carries the baby, our 2 children behind him, out the door, I stay. I pick out something from my wallet, something I have been waiting to use. I leave the $100 bill at our table and watch from a distance as the young waiter approaches it. He looks like he's in college, just a young bachelor making his way through the world. When he picks up the bill, he kneels in shock. He beams and his expression makes my day, or rather what I was left of the night. He stands up to look, but I'm gone, out the door with tears in my eyes. I recall when I had worked a day-to-night shift at a restaurant in Brazil and had received no tips, no thank yous, no gratitude. I had ventured, fatigued, to a coffee shop the next morning, hoping to re-energize myself for the day to come. I expected nothing, but received everything. Some person, whom I still do not know to this day, anonymously purchased a box of Brazilian chocolates for me. I had been so overwhelmed by the deed, I felt like doing the same for the person behind me in line. My sentimental nostalgia fades away as my husband drives our family back home through the snow. The inside of our car is warm with love and euphoria, the children content, the baby gurgling with glee, and the sound of our voices caroling with the radio clear against the world. I'm paying it forward, and I love the way it feels. Thank you.